Welcome back to the Daughter Arise channel. This channel is all about bringing you news, contents and commentary about childhood sexual abuse. My name is Yvonne Ellis and I was sexually abused as a child, and I've overcome many of the challenges in the aftermath. And I've set up this channel to give support, encouragement, hope and information to survivors and victims of sexual abuse, their supporters and anybody else that wants to find out how it affects lives. It is important that I tell you that when on this video that I'm sharing with you today, that I give you a warning about the content because it is quite harrowing. I do this because if there are survivors listening, they may feel triggered by the information that I share, and I want to give survivors and victims the chance to click off of this video if they don't feel that they're able to listen to the content. And also to anybody else who hasn't been through sexual abuse, it's important that I share with you that because of the nature of sexual abuse, the information is quite graphic and it is not pleasant, and I need to tell you that so that you are aware of this. So I came across this story in the Jamaican Star newspaper, and it is from last year, and it's about two Jamaican males that have been through sexual abuse. They have decided they no longer want to suffer in silence and have come forward to share their stories about how they were raped by other males. One of the men, George Brown, a security guard, said his father raped him repeatedly for 5 years. And Paul Black, who now resides in Canada, said he became suicidal after a family friend took advantage of him. It started when I was 7 and lasted till I was about 13 or so. By the age of 9, everything that is seen on Jamaican TV was done to me. The ordeal was cruel, Paul Black shared. In the case of George Brown, he claimed it was his own father that made his life a nightmare. He shares in Jamaican Patois, which is the native language for Jamaicans, about what his father has done to him, but I'm just paraphrasing it in English so that you can understand. He said that he tried to put it to the back of his mind and shut it out, but it didn't work at all. He said most of the time you hear about things that happen to girls, but a lot of the time it happens to males too. He said he hid it because he didn't want to get labelled as weak or vulnerable. He explained that his father was well respected in the community and that he began violating him at 14. He lived with his stepmom in St. Catherine's. His mother lived in another area of Jamaica. One Friday night, he said he was going up to bed and his father said to him how he loved him. And when he let him go, he said he tried to kiss him on the lips. He said his father must have noticed the shock on his face, but quickly assured him he was just playing a fatherly role. Paedophiles and predators don't just pick up themselves and do these type of actions. They're well prepared in advance for what they're going to do. They've already crossed those boundaries. As I've shared on other videos from research from the top professor in childhood trauma and sexual abuse, Professor Fingerhorst, shares there are 4 preconceived conditions that a paedophile must overcome in order to abuse a child. And his father was just testing the boundaries, as you can see in this case. And he took advantage of him because he didn't know what sexual abuse was, didn't know anything about boundaries, what his father was not supposed to do. He said that he tried to brush the matter aside, and after a few weeks, he thought because there was no repeat of the incident that, nothing else would happen. He said he went through a phase of overthinking, that he thought maybe he did something wrong. He thought that, nothing else would happen. And what happened next, he said he was too ashamed to tell because he woke up one night and found his father on top of him. He said the assaults continued, and with each encounter that became worse. He gave an example of an incident where the next day he had an exam. He said that he was trying to prepare for his exam and that his father came in and told him to sit on his lap. He had an erection, and basically he raped him. And he said that how the next day he failed his exam miserably. He said the abuse only stopped after he confided in a neighbour that what his father had done to him. And he said his neighbour confronted his father and told him he was going to report it to the authorities. He said his father denied the allegations, saying the stories were fabricated. But he said the neighbour made contact with his mother, who eventually came and took him to live with her. Now, I just need to take a pause here because I just feel like my heart just feels so heavy and so burdened by just what I have read, the fact that this poor young man has had to experience so much trauma from being raped by his own father. And, you know, in a lot of incidences, a lot of times children just cannot speak out. And here we have him as a young 14-year-old boy. He tried to tell his mother what was going on. His mother told him it was a lie that he was telling. You know, I'm just making an appeal here. If you are a parent, a caregiver, somebody that is looking after young children, and your child or the child that you're looking after comes to you and tells you that somebody has tried to do something to them, all I'm asking you to do is just to listen to the child. It doesn't cost anything. The least you can do is just to give that child a little bit of your time by just listening. I know it's horrifying to hear that somebody you know, love, or care about, or who's respected in your community or social circle could be accused of something like this. But it is important to listen to the child. The mother in this case completely shut down her son without even giving him the time of day. And this is what paedophiles and child abusers, this is what they rely on. They rely on the fact that their facade that they put on in front of people can get them off with what they're doing. They don't deserve any honor. They don't deserve any kind of cover. The things that they do are evil, you know, and they need to be brought to justice for what they are doing. You know, I'm thankful that this young boy, even though his mother shut him down, was able to go to a neighbour and tell the neighbour exactly again what his father was doing. And the neighbour, you know, I have to commend the neighbour's actions in listening to the boy and ringing the boy's mother and getting the boy's mother to come and collect him. But really, the neighbour should have also called the police. There should be something where there's mandatory reporting. If anybody suspects childhood sexual abuse is going on with a child, they know, or anything, it should be mandatory that they have to report it. Because, you know, it is too much for a child, a victim, a survivor to have to bear the brunt of that responsibility, knowing that they're probably going to be accused of lying or shamed or blamed for what has happened to them. But even in his good intentions, you know, he did try and do something, but he should have reported it to the police. He says here that him and his father are not on speaking terms and that he's undergoing counselling sessions and has major anger and trust issues. He said when he got older, he tried to confront him about what he did to him, and his father acted like he didn't know what he was talking about. He says he has a girlfriend, and he says he's too ashamed to even tell her what has happened to him. It is just absolutely heartbreaking that this has happened. This man that has done this to him, his father, needs to be held accountable for his actions. I am zero tolerance on paedophiles and child abusers. As somebody who has not had justice myself in my own experience, this is why I go so hard with childhood sexual abuse. This is why I campaign and I'm an advocate for the voiceless, because I don't care about these people. They don't care about the damage that they do. They don't care about the impact it has on that child's life. They would rather throw the child, the victim, the survivor under the bus to save their own skin and move on to the next vulnerable child they see in a situation to abuse. They really don't care. Even a lot of the times when they are caught, they deny it. You know, they have no shame. I have been reporting on sexual abuse and supported survivors for over 8 years. I've known many friends, colleagues and acquaintances over the last 20 or 25, 30 years that have been through sexual abuse. You know, a lot of the time, again, you know, the survivor is the one that's left to pick up the pieces. They never own up to what they've done. My father never owned up to what they don't, because they don't feel what they have done is wrong. And that in itself is a problem. They have a strong issue in that area that needs to be dealt with. And unfortunately, as with any problem or issue, it all starts with taking ownership and admitting you've got a problem. But a lot of the time, paedophiles cannot do that. The other gentleman, Paul Blacks, has also a similar story. In his case, it was a family friend that violated him. 90% of the time, with any sexual abuse, is committed by someone the child knows, loves or trusts. 90% of the time, it is not stranger danger, it is someone the child knows, loves or trusts. He said the night before he had an examination, he was badly abused to the point where he passed out and woke up to this man still having his way with him. He went to school the next day with a hand towel padding in his pants because he was bleeding so badly. their actions are so brutal and so disgusting. It breaks my heart that they have had to go through this and that they've had to be subjected to this. Male survivors have such a hard time as well. All survivors of sexual abuse have a hard time, whether you're male or female, but male survivors, for them, there's a lot of different kind of perceptions and attitudes attached to being sexually abused. We all start as children. We all experience sexual abuse, but for males, for men who've gone through it as children, there is this notion that you are weak, that you allowed it to happen, that you shouldn't allow somebody else to overpower you. As children, there's no way that we can overpower the adults who have sexually abused us. There's just no way. And it's unfair that people put the burden of responsibility on the child that has been through it. And the things they've had to go through, no child should have to go through this. But this is the reality of so many children as well out here now who are being trafficked, who are being sold into sex slavery, who are victims of paedophiles, being trafficked around, being raped in their own families. You know, this is really something that is happening continuously as I'm even reading this right now. And in the black community, you know, there's a real denial and a real complacency and a denial about sexual abuse in our community. Why is that? We need to come to grips with this. It does happen, you know, and we can't keep hiding from this truth. We can't keep hiding from the fact that those people that you know are the ones that are doing it. He tried to test the waters and tell his father, but his father was a very dark man. He said he tried to give hints, but his father nearly lashed out at him. He said he wanted to tell his parents, but he said the shame that would accompany such a scenario, he said he felt it would be endless. Brown also said that his sex life is basically non-existent and his ordeal has left him on the verge of committing suicide. He said, every time I get naked, the scars are there to tell the tale. I'm still a virgin. I will never change in a locker room at work because seeing another man naked terrifies me. He said he tried to commit suicide several times, most recently in December. He said he took a bottle of paracetamol and 2 bottles of sleeping tablets together. He spent 2.5 days in hospital and had to stop work for a month. One thing he wants to come out of this is to insist that parents need to communicate with their kids. Brown has never reported the matter to the police. This is just their stories. And, you know, I am going to be praying for both men, Paul Black and George Brown. This is just such a terrible thing that's happened to them, and I pray that the God that has healed me and delivered me from all the hurt and trauma from sexual abuse also helps and heals them too, and I know that he will. You know, the burden of shame and the injury and wounds that it does to the soul, spirit and mind and body is just so terrible. I'm hoping and praying that from this story that people who have gone through sexual abuse, especially men, can find courage and encouragement, as hard and as difficult as it is, that you will be able to reach out to somebody, even if it's a confidential helpline, and just share your experience, because the worst thing you can do is to keep it inside. To keep that inside, you have to carry that. You have done nothing to be ashamed about. And I hope one day that my work will travel to places like Jamaica and different countries and islands that this is happening in, because too many times children are suffering. I pray they get the help that they need, and that life can at least in some way be something that they can claim for themselves. But it will be a journey, as it is a journey for any other survivor of sexual abuse. I've written this book called Choose Life, which was released last week Tuesday. It's available on Amazon and Waterstones, and it's a self-help book to help survivors of childhood sexual abuse, to give them awareness, help and practical tips on how to